Hey everyone, it's Emma. So, you will not believe what happened to me today. It's actually pretty funny, and I just have to share it with you. You see, I woke up this morning with the best of intentions. My room was, let's just say, a little bit messy, and I decided, today is the day. I am cleaning this room. I even made a mental checklist. Dust, vacuum, organize the bookshelf, the whole 9 yards. And I started off strong, I really did. I put on some upbeat music, grabbed my cleaning supplies, and then, well, things took a turn. Let's just say I ended up reorganizing my sock drawer by color, deep cleaning my makeup brushes, which, admittedly, needed it, and even alphabetizing my spice rack. Honestly, it felt like hours just flew by in a whirlwind of everything but cleaning my room. And you know what? My room is still a mess, but somehow, I feel strangely productive. It's a bit ridiculous, isn't it? So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together with this funny little story of mine. I release new videos daily focusing on English speaking and listening skills, so make sure you subscribe to join me on this fun and helpful learning journey. So, you know how sometimes you get this urge? This little nudge in your soul that tells you need to do something more? That's what happened to me last fall. I was scrolling through Instagram, probably looking at pictures of cats, don't judge me, and I stumbled across a post about volunteering at a local food bank. And something just clicked. I'd always meant to volunteer, you know? It's one of those things that sits on your to-do list, somewhere between learn to play the ukulele and finally organize that junk drawer. But this time, it was different. This time, the urge didn't fade. So, I signed up. The food bank was tucked away in this unassuming little building downtown, kind of squeezed between a laundromat and a used bookstore. A real, hidden gem, kind of place. My first day, I was a nervous wreck. I'm not gonna lie, I had this image in my head of, I don't know, maybe being surrounded by mountains of canned goods, not really knowing what to do. I walked in, the door chiming this cheerful little ding-dong, and the air. Oh, the air. It smelled like a mix of cardboard boxes, fresh apples, and something vaguely institutional. You know that smell? It's hard to describe. It was a little chaotic, too. Volunteers buzzing around, boxes being unpacked, someone calling out, "We need more hands over here." I felt a little overwhelmed, like I'd just stepped into a very busy beehive. A kind-faced woman with bright red lipstick and a name tag that read, Brenda, rescued me from my awkward standing near the door moment. "You must be the new volunteer," she chirped, her voice surprisingly loud over the general hubbub. "Welcome aboard. Don't worry, we'll get you sorted." And she did. Brenda, bless her heart, was like a food bank whirlwind. She showed me the ropes, where everything was stored, how to sort the donations, how to pack the boxes. It was a lot to take in, but she explained everything with this infectious enthusiasm, like she genuinely loved spending her Tuesdays surrounded by canned peaches and boxes of pasta. It was kind of inspiring, actually. My first task was sorting through a huge bin of donated produce. Now, I thought, I knew what bruised apple meant, you know? But let me tell you, I had no idea. There were apples with bruises the size of golf balls, bananas that looked like they'd lost a boxing match, and oranges. Well, let's just say some of those oranges had seen better days. It was my job to separate the salvageable from the not so salvageable. It was surprisingly tricky. I kept second-guessing myself. Is this banana too brown? Can we still use this slightly squishy tomato? Brenda, sensing my hesitation, came over and gave me this little wink. Trust your gut, she said. If you wouldn't eat it, we won't give it away. Simple advice, but so helpful. After the produce mountain, I moved on to packing boxes. This, I thought, would be easy. Just put the food in the boxes, right? Wrong. There was a system, a very specific system. Each box had to contain a certain amount of protein, grains, fruits, vegetables, and so on. It was like a nutritional jigsaw puzzle. And, of course, I messed up. I accidentally put 2 cans of tuna in a box that was only supposed to have 1. Rookie mistake, Brenda chuckled, gently removing the extra can. I felt my cheeks flush. But you know what? It was okay. Everyone makes mistakes, especially when you're learning something new. As the day went on, I started to get the hang of it. I became faster at sorting, more efficient at packing. I even started to recognize some of the other volunteers. There was Mr. Henderson, a retired teacher who always wore a bow tie, and Maria, a college student who could stack cans faster than anyone I'd ever seen. It was this odd little community, all these different people, from different backgrounds, coming together for a common purpose. It was heartwarming, actually. One of the most surprising things about the experience was the people who came to pick up the food boxes. I had this preconceived notion, you know? But the reality was so different. There were families with young children, elderly couples, single mothers, people who looked just like me. It was a stark reminder that anyone can fall on hard times. It really put things into perspective. There was this one moment I'll never forget. I was handing a box to a young woman, maybe in her early 20s, with a little girl clinging to her leg. The woman looked exhausted, her eyes tired, but when I handed her the box, she smiled. It wasn't a big smile, but it was genuine. Thank you, she said, her voice soft. This means so much. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. It wasn't just about sorting cans and packing boxes anymore. It was about connection. About helping someone, even in a small way. By the end of my first shift, I was exhausted. My feet ached, my back hurt, and I smelled faintly of apples and cardboard. But I also felt good. Really good. It was a tired but happy kind of feeling, you know? Like I'd actually accomplished something meaningful. I kept volunteering at the food bank after that, week after week. It became part of my routine, something I looked forward to. It wasn't always easy. Some days were busier than others. Some days the donations were less than plentiful. But every day, I learned something new. I learned about food insecurity, about community, about the simple power of giving. And you know what else I learned? I learned that sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness can have the biggest impact. It's not about grand gestures or saving the world. It's about showing up, doing what you can, and making a difference. 1 can of soup, 1 box of pasta, 1 bruised apple at a time. So, yeah, that's my food bank story. It's nothing dramatic, nothing earth-shattering, but it's mine. And honestly, it changed me. It reminded me that we're all in this together, you know? And sometimes, all it takes is a little nudge, a little ding-dong of a door opening, to find your place in the world. even if it's between a laundromat and a used bookstore. Okay, so grab a cuppa, get comfy, because this story is a bit of a ride. It's about cars, or rather, my spectacular lack of knowledge about them, and how that all changed, sort of. It's a bittersweet tale, a coming-of-age saga involving grief, frustration, and the surprising resilience of a very old, very temperamental Volvo. You see, I grew up in a house where car maintenance was this mysterious, masculine ritual performed by my dad. He'd disappear into the garage, armed with tools that looked like medieval torture devices, and emerge hours later smelling of oil and sounding triumphant. I, meanwhile, was firmly relegated to the realm of indoors stuff. Changing a light bulb? Sure. Fixing a leaky faucet? No problem. Checking the oil level in the car? Absolutely not. That was dad territory. So, I sailed through life blissfully ignorant, relying on my dad, then my boyfriend, then my mechanic, to handle anything remotely car-related. I treated cars like magical metal boxes that somehow transported me from point A to point B. I mean, who needs to know how an engine works, right? As long as it does. Famous last words, my friend, famous last words. The turning point, the catalyst, the big bang moment that propelled me into the world of spark plugs and oil filters, was dramatic. Picture this. I'm driving back from a friend's wedding in the middle of nowhere. It's late, I'm tired, the road is dark and winding. And suddenly, clunk. The car lurches, a shudder runs through the chassis, and an unholy grinding sound erupts from somewhere beneath me. I pull over, heart hammering, convinced I've driven over a small woodland creature. Turns out, it wasn't a squirrel. It was my own blissful ignorance catching up with me. The car, my trusty but elderly Volvo, bless its Swedish heart, had decided to stage a dramatic protest against my utter neglect. The tire was flat, flatter than a pancake, and I had no clue what to do. I called my dad, of course. He patiently talked me through the process, but the signal was patchy, my hands were shaking, and the whole experience felt like trying to perform brain surgery with a butter knife. Changing a tire in the dark, by the side of a deserted road, with only the chirping of crickets for company, is not exactly a confidence booster. Let me tell you, I mangled that tire iron, scraped my knuckles, and cursed enough to make a sailor blush. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I managed to get the spare tire on. It was wobbly, it looked precarious, but it was on. I limped home, covered in grease and humiliation, vowing to never be that helpless again. The next day, fueled by a potent cocktail of embarrassment and determination, I enrolled in a basic car maintenance course. It was held in a grimy community center, taught by a gruff but kindly mechanic named Tony. The other students were a motley crew. Teenage boys tinkering with their first cars, a retired couple wanting to keep their RV in tip-top shape, and me, the clueless city girl who couldn't tell a dipstick from a door handle. The first few classes were humbling. I fumbled with wrenches, mixed up fluids, and generally felt like a fish out of water. The smell of oil and gasoline, which used to evoke vague memories of my dad, now filled me with a mixture of anxiety and resolve. Tony, bless his patient soul, took me under his wing. He explained things slowly, demonstrated patiently, and never once laughed at my ridiculously basic questions. "What's a carburetor?" I asked once, feeling my cheeks flush. He just smiled, pointed to a complex-looking contraption under the hood, and launched into a detailed explanation that somehow managed to be both technical and understandable. Slowly, miraculously, things started to click. I learned how to check the oil, change a tire, properly this time, jump-start a dead battery, and even identify a few of the more important components under the hood. I started to understand the language of cars, the clicks and whirs, the groans and rumbles. It wasn't magic, it was mechanics. And I could learn it. Remember that feeling of accomplishment when you finally learned to ride a bike? That's how it felt. Empowering. Liberating. I still remember the first time I successfully changed the oil in my Volvo. My hands were dirty, my clothes were stained, but I felt like I could conquer the world. Or at least, get myself out of a roadside emergency without having a complete meltdown. Of course, there were still mishaps. Like the time I poured windshield washer fluid into the oil reservoir. Don't ask. Just, don't ask. Or the time I tried to change a spark plug and somehow managed to strip the threads. But each mistake was a lesson. Each frustration was a stepping stone. You know, I never became a full-fledged mechanic. I still take my car to a professional for anything remotely complicated. But I'm no longer intimidated by it. I'm no longer helpless. I can check the fluids, change a tire, and even diagnose a few basic problems. And the smell of oil and gasoline? It still reminds me of my dad, but now it also reminds me of my own resilience, my willingness to learn, and the surprising satisfaction of knowing how things work. So, that's the story of how I learned basic car maintenance. It's a story about facing my fears, embracing the unknown, and discovering that even the most daunting tasks can be conquered with a little patience, a lot of perseverance, and a generous dose of good humor. And you know what? I wouldn't trade that experience, those scraped knuckles and greasy hands, for anything. It taught me more than just how to change a tire. It taught me how to rely on myself, and that, my friend, is a lesson worth its weight in gold. Now, whose turn is it to refill the tea? Hey everyone, learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, right? But remember, your small steps today are silent victories. Each word you learn, each sentence you practice, it all adds up. It's like building a beautiful mosaic, one tiny tile at a time. You might not see the full picture immediately, but trust me, with every effort, you're getting closer to fluency, and that's something to be incredibly proud of. You know what can be a fun way to practice? Pretend you're a flight attendant making announcements. Imagine yourself walking around your kitchen, or maybe during your evening walk, and start practicing phrases like, "Welcome aboard." "Please fasten your seat belts," or, "Dinner will be served shortly." It sounds silly, but honestly, it's such a light-hearted and easy way to get those words flowing naturally. Plus, it's a great way to boost your confidence without even realizing it. Do you also find yourself understanding what others say in English, but hesitate when it's your turn to speak? I totally get it. Worrying if you're speaking too loudly or softly is something I've definitely experienced. It's like this little voice in your head questioning everything, and sometimes it can hold us back from just diving in. But remember, everyone goes through this, and it's perfectly okay. Your voice matters, and every time you speak, you're taking a step forward. And you know what? I was just thinking about this the other day while I was making coffee, completely lost in my own little world of English practice. It made me wonder, What's your favorite way to practice English when you're alone? It's those little moments of solo practice that can really make a difference, so I'd love to hear what works best for you. Share your tips and tricks in the comments. Let's learn and grow together. Okay, so grab a cup of something warm. Settle in, because this story is a good one. It's about my first sunrise hike. And let me tell you, it wasn't just a hike, it was an experience. Like, a capital E experience. You know the kind? It all started with my friend, Sarah. She's Sarah. Always buzzing with energy, always planning some grand adventure. She calls me up one Tuesday. A Tuesday, mind you, and goes, "Right, we're hiking up Mount Albion to watch the sunrise this Saturday. Be ready at 3:30 a.m. 3:30 a.m. I practically choked on my chamomile tea. 3:30? I sputtered. Sarah, I don't even see 3:30 a.m. unless I'm having a particularly vivid nightmare. But she's persuasive, that's Sarah. She painted this picture of breathtaking views, the sky exploding with color, the quiet majesty of nature before the world wakes up, and foolishly, I bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. So, Saturday rolls around. My alarm screams at me from my nightstand. It's pitch black, the kind of dark that swallows everything whole. I stumble around, pull on the hiking clothes I'd meticulously laid out the night before. Yes, I was that nervous, and somehow managed to pour myself a cup of coffee without spilling half of it down my front. A minor victory at 3:30 a.m., let me tell you. Sarah arrives, predictably bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, armed with granola bars and what I swear was an industrial-sized thermos of coffee. We pile into her car, the only sounds the hum of the engine and my internal monologue desperately trying to convince myself that this was a good idea. The drive up to the trailhead was an experience. Winding mountain roads, hairpin turns, the occasional deer darting across the road. It was like being in a slightly less terrifying version of a video game. I gripped the dashboard, muttering prayers to whatever deity was listening. Sarah, meanwhile, was belting out 80s power ballads at the top of her lungs. You know, a typical pre-dawn car ride. We finally reached the trailhead. It was still dark, only the faintest glimmer of pre-dawn light starting to paint the eastern sky. The air was crisp, almost biting, with that distinct mountain chill. I could smell the pine needles, the damp earth, a hint of something almost sweet? Wildflowers maybe? I don't know, but it was intoxicating. And then, we started hiking. Now, I consider myself reasonably fit, but let me tell you, hiking uphill in the pre-dawn darkness is a whole different ballgame. I was huffing and puffing within the first 10 minutes. Sarah, of course, was practically skipping ahead, chatting away about the local flora and fauna. I'm pretty sure she could have run a marathon in her sleep. The trail wound upwards, sometimes steep, sometimes more gradual. We passed through patches of trees, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers against the lightening sky. The silence was incredible, broken only by the crunch of our boots on the gravel path and our own breathing. It was peaceful, unexpectedly so. I started to understand why Sarah had dragged me out of bed at this ungodly hour. As we climbed higher, the first rays of sunlight began to peek over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. It was like someone had taken a giant paintbrush and swept it across the canvas of the sky. Absolutely breathtaking. I stopped dead in my tracks, just staring. Sarah nudged me, grinning. Told you it was worth it, she whispered. And it was. Oh, it was so worth it. We reached the summit just as the sun fully broke the horizon. The view? I don't even have words. Mountains stretched out in every direction, bathed in the golden light of the rising sun. The valleys below were shrouded in mist, creating this ethereal, almost dreamlike landscape. I felt small, but not in a bad way. Small and insignificant, but also somehow connected to something bigger than myself. You know what I mean? We sat there for a long time, just soaking it all in. We ate our granola bars, drank our coffee, mine had gone lukewarm, but I didn't care, and just breathed. The air was so clean, so crisp. The silence was broken only by the chirping of birds and the distant rush of a waterfall. The sun climbed higher, the sky changing from pink and orange to a vibrant blue. The world below started to wake up. We could hear the faint sounds of cars starting, dogs barking, life stirring. It was time to go back down. The descent was surprisingly easier than the ascent. Maybe it was the adrenaline wearing off, maybe it was the sunlight energizing me, or maybe it was just the sheer joy of having witnessed something so incredible. Whatever it was, I felt lighter, almost giddy. We talked more on the way down, about everything and nothing. About our dreams, our fears, our hopes for the future. It was like the mountain had stripped away all the superficial layers and left us with this raw, honest connection. Back at the trailhead, the world looked different. The same trees, the same rocks, the same parking lot, but somehow, different. Brighter, maybe. More alive. I hugged Sarah, a genuine, heartfelt hug. Thank you, I said, meaning it with every fiber of my being. For dragging me out of bed, for forcing me to do this. I'll never forget it. She just smiled, her eyes sparkling. I knew you'd love it, she said. And you know what? She was right. Driving back, the world felt new. The mundane things, the traffic lights, the grocery stores, they all seemed to hold a different kind of beauty. Like I had been given a glimpse behind the curtain, a reminder that there was more to life than the daily grind. More beauty, more magic, more wonder. All you had to do was look for it. Or, in my case, climb a mountain at 3:30 in the morning to find it. So, yeah, that's the story of my first sunrise hike. It wasn't just a hike, it was a revelation. It was a reminder to slow down, to appreciate the small things, to embrace the beauty that surrounds us, even in the most unexpected places. And it all started with a crazy idea, a persuasive friend, and a 3:30 am alarm clock. Who knew? Seriously, who knew? I highly recommend the experience. Just, maybe pack an extra thermos of coffee. And maybe a spare pair of lungs. Just in case. Okay. So grab a cuppa. Settle in. Because this story is a bit of a roller coaster. It's about the time I decided, quite spontaneously really, to organize a charity drive. See, I'm not exactly what you'd call a natural organizer. I'm more of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of person. But something just sparked in me. You know that feeling, right? Like you just have to do something. It all started with a news report. I was making breakfast, toast and marmalade. My usual, and the TV was on in the background. This story came on about a local animal shelter struggling to stay afloat. They showed these little faces, all big eyes and wagging tails, and the announcer said they were running out of food, blankets, everything. And I don't know. Something in me just clutched. I felt this overwhelming urge to do something. So, yeah, that's how it began. Me, with my slightly chaotic life and absolutely zero experience in fundraising, decided to organize a charity drive. Ambitious? Probably. Crazy? Definitely. But there was no turning back. The first hurdle, and this is going to sound hilarious in retrospect, was figuring out how to even organize a charity drive. I mean, where do you even start? I Googled, how to organize a charity drive, like a true millennial. The internet, bless its digital heart, provided a deluge of information. It was overwhelming. Spreadsheets, permits, logistics. It felt like I was trying to learn a new language. I started small. I roped in a couple of friends, Sarah and Mark, who are, thankfully, much more organized than me. Sarah, with her color-coded notebooks and perfectly planned schedules, became my operational guru. Mark, with his infectious enthusiasm and knack for public speaking, took on the role of chief motivator. We had our little war room, my living room, strewn with sticky notes, printouts, and half-eaten bags of chips. We decided to focus on a community event. A fun day, you know? Something that would attract people, something with energy. We brainstormed ideas. Bake sale, 2 traditional, car wash, 2 weather-dependent, dog walk, brilliant. We all have dogs, the shelter needed help, it just clicked. Positive Steps for the Shelter. That was the name we came up with. Cheesy, I know, but it stuck. Then came the logistical nightmare. We needed a venue. I called up the local park, fingers crossed, and managed to secure a spot. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Then came permits, insurance, advertising. My head was spinning. I was sending emails at 2 a.m. My phone was constantly buzzing with calls and messages. I was living on caffeine and sheer willpower. But you know what kept me going? The faces of those animals. I had printed out a few pictures from the shelter's website and stuck them on my fridge. Every time I felt like giving up, I'd look at those hopeful eyes and think, nope, gotta keep going. Then came the day of the event. I woke up to a gray, overcast sky. My heart sank. Rain would be a disaster. But, guess what? Just as we were setting up, the clouds parted, and the sun peeked through. It was like a sign. A cheesy, cliché sign, but I'll take it. The park slowly started filling up with people and their furry friends. There were bouncy castles, face-painting stalls, food trucks. The air was filled with the sound of barking dogs, excited chatter, and the delicious aroma of hot dogs and popcorn. It was magical. I mean, it was chaotic too, don't get me wrong. There was a moment of pure panic when a chihuahua named Princess escaped her leash and made a beeline for the hot dog stand. But we managed to retrieve her, hot dog unharmed, and everyone had a good laugh. We had organized a donation drive, and people brought blankets, toys, food mountains of it. There were families, elderly couples, teenagers, everyone coming together for this cause. It was genuinely heartwarming. I saw kids donating their pocket money, elderly ladies knitting dog sweaters, and tough-looking bikers cuddling puppies. It was a beautiful mess, a testament to the power of community. And the shelter staff? They were overwhelmed. Tears in their eyes, thanking us profusely. That's when I realized, that all the stress, all the sleepless nights, it was all worth it. It wasn't about me, it was about those animals. It was about making a difference, no matter how small. Looking back, it wasn't perfect. We made mistakes. We stumbled. We definitely learned a lot along the way. I even had a minor meltdown the week before, convinced I was going to ruin everything. But you know what? We did it. We pulled it off. And we raised a significant amount of money and supplies for the shelter. The experience changed me. It showed me that even someone as disorganized as myself could achieve something amazing if I set my mind to it. It taught me the importance of community, the power of collaboration, and the sheer joy of helping others. So, yeah, that's my story. My accidental adventure in charity organizing. It was a roller coaster, a learning curve, a beautiful mess. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it for the world. So, what do you think? Pretty crazy, right? Maybe next time, I'll try something a little less chaotic. But then again, where's the fun in that? You know what I mean? Anyway, enough about me. How's that tea? Let me refill your cup. Learning a new language, especially speaking, can feel like climbing a mountain, right? But what if I told you the most rewarding view isn't from the summit of perfection, but from the connections you make along the way? Don't chase perfection, chase connection. It's about communicating, sharing, and experiencing, and that's where the real magic happens. Every fumble, every pause, every slightly mispronounced word is a step closer to fluency, a step closer to connecting with someone new. Believe me, it's way more enjoyable than aiming for flawless grammar. And you know what? Here's a fun little practice idea that can help you loosen up and find your voice. Pretend you're selling a bizarre product on TV. Imagine you're trying to convince someone to buy a self-folding laundry basket or a singing toothbrush. Get creative. You can do this while you're cooking dinner, walking the dog, or even just waiting for the kettle to boil. Honestly, it's surprisingly helpful for practicing pronunciation and thinking on your feet. It builds confidence and makes practicing feel like a game rather than a chore. Struggling to understand fast speakers? Oh, I feel you. It's like trying to catch falling leaves in a hurricane. You hear a flurry of sounds, but piecing them together into coherent sentences feels impossible sometimes. It can be so frustrating, especially when you feel like you understand everything in slow motion. But hey, it happens to everyone, and it's totally normal. It's just a part of the learning process, and you'll get there. You will not believe what happened to me the other day. I thought someone was complimenting my fantastic goose, but they were actually admiring my fantastic juice. It gave us all a good laugh. And that got me thinking, have you ever misunderstood a word in English with funny results? I'd love to hear your story. Sharing these moments can be a great way to learn and connect with others who understand the ups and downs of this language journey. Settling into a comfy armchair, I lean forward with a smile. So, you know how sometimes the simplest things can bring back a flood of memories? Like, the scent of rain on hot pavement takes you right back to your childhood summers? Well, for me, it's cucumber raita. Just the thought of that cool, creamy yogurt speckled with bright green cucumber and a hint of spice, it whisks me right back to my grandmother's kitchen. Now, my grandmother, Nani, we called her, was a magician in the kitchen. I'm not exaggerating. She could whip up a feast fit for royalty with just a handful of simple ingredients. And her cucumber raita? Oh, it was legendary. Every family gathering, every celebration, every quiet afternoon lunch, there it was. A little bowl of heaven in the middle of the table. I must have been, maybe 7 or 8 years old when I first decided I wanted to learn the secrets of Nani's raita. I remember trailing after her in the kitchen, my little nose twitching, trying to absorb every detail. The kitchen itself was, well, it wasn't fancy. It was small, actually, with slightly chipped pastel yellow cabinets and a window that looked out onto a lemon tree. But it was always filled with the most amazing aromas. Cardamom, cumin, turmeric. The spices danced in the air, creating a symphony of scents that I still remember vividly. So, there I was, this little shadow, watching Nani as she prepared the raita. She'd pull out a beautiful, dark green cucumber. Not one of those pale, supermarket ones, mind you, but a proper, firm cucumber from her own garden. She'd wash it under the tap, the water making the skin gleam, and then she'd hold it in her hands, almost like she was weighing its worth. Remember those bumpy, slightly prickly cucumbers? Yeah, those are the ones. They just tasted different. More real, somehow. I pause, taking a sip of imaginary tea. She wouldn't peel the entire cucumber. Just stripes of it, leaving alternating strips of dark and light green. You know, for that extra bit of visual appeal. And she'd do it so effortlessly, the peeler gliding across the cucumber's skin like a figure skater on ice. Me? I'd tried it once and ended up with more cucumber on the floor than in the bowl. It's harder than it looks. Nani would just chuckle, her eyes twinkling, and hand me a broom. Then came the chopping. Now, this wasn't just any chopping, mind you. She'd dice the cucumber into these tiny, perfect little cubes. Not too big, not too small. Just perfect. The rhythmic thwack 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 of her knife against the wooden cutting board was like a soothing melody. I'd be mesmerized, watching her hands move with such precision and grace. I mimicked the chopping motion with my hand, a wistful smile playing on my lips. Next, she'd take a big bowl of yogurt. Thick, creamy, homemade yogurt, of course. None of that watery store-bought stuff. This yogurt, you could almost stand a spoon in it. And the taste? Oh, it was tangy and rich, with a hint of sweetness. It was a world away from anything you can find in a supermarket these days. I'm telling you, homemade yogurt is a game changer. Into the yogurt, she'd gently fold the diced cucumber. Then came the spices. A pinch of roasted cumin powder, a dash of salt, a tiny sprinkle of chili flakes for a little kick. And the secret ingredient? A teaspoon of finely chopped fresh mint. That's what elevated her raita from good to sublime. The mint added this fresh, vibrant note that just made everything sing. She'd mix it all together with a gentle hand, her face etched with concentration. And then, the final touch. A drizzle of olive oil and a scattering of more mint leaves on top. It was a masterpiece. I take a deep breath, as if inhaling the aroma of the raita. You know, for years, I tried to replicate Nani's raita. I followed her instructions to the letter, measuring everything precisely, but it never quite tasted the same. It was good, don't get me wrong, but it lacked something. That special something that only Nani's hands could create. Then one day, I was making raita for a family gathering. I was chopping the cucumber, meticulously dicing it into perfect little cubes, when I suddenly stopped. I realized I was so focused on getting everything exactly right that I had forgotten the most important ingredient, love. Nani never measured her spices precisely. She didn't obsess over the size of the cucumber cubes. She cooked with love, with joy, with a deep connection to her ingredients and the people she was cooking for. And that, I realized, was the secret ingredient all along. So, I put down my knife, took a deep breath, and started again. This time, I didn't worry about being perfect. I just focused on the process, on the feel of the cool cucumber in my hands, the scent of the mint, the sound of the knife against the cutting board. I thought about Nani, about her warm smile, her gentle hands, and the love she poured into every dish she made. And guess what? That day, my raita tasted different. It wasn't exactly the same as Nani's, of course. But it was close. It had that same freshness, that same vibrancy, that same love. And as I watched my family enjoy it, their faces lighting up with pleasure, I felt a warmth spread through me. It wasn't just about the raita. It was about the connection, the memory, the love that had been passed down from generation to generation, through a simple bowl of yogurt and cucumber. I smile, a genuine, heartfelt smile. So, you see, making cucumber raita isn't just about following a recipe. It's about connecting with something deeper. It's about remembering the people who nourished us, both body and soul. And it's about sharing that love with the people we care about. It's a simple dish, really. But sometimes, the simplest things are the most powerful. Now, who wants some raita? I think I have some cucumbers in the fridge, and some fresh mint from the garden. Let me tell you another story while we prepare it. It involves a rogue squirrel and a missing lemon. Okay. So, you know how sometimes you just need a moment? Like a real, honest-to-goodness moment? Well, I had one of those moments, and it all revolved around a sunset. Not just any sunset, mind you. This sunset was something else. It wasn't planned, really. It was one of those days, you know? Where everything feels a bit off. Like a slightly out-of-tune piano. Work had been a whirlwind of frantic emails and urgent requests. My to-do list felt longer at the end of the day than it did at the beginning. Which, how is that even possible, right? I came home feeling like a deflated balloon. All air whooshed out. I remember just dumping my bag by the door, not even bothering to hang it up, which my mom would definitely have something to say about, and heading straight for the kitchen. Grabbed a glass of lukewarm water, because who has the energy to fill the ice tray, honestly? And I just stood there, staring out the window. Now, our kitchen window doesn't exactly offer a breathtaking vista. It mostly overlooks Mrs. Higgins' meticulously manicured lawn and her gnome collection, which, by the way, keeps growing. I swear, every time I look, there's a new gnome. Where does she even get them? Anyway, I digress. But that day, even Mrs. Higgins' gnomes couldn't distract me. Because beyond the gnomes, beyond the perfectly trimmed hedges, the sky was doing something remarkable. It was like someone had taken a giant paintbrush and swirled vibrant colors across a canvas. There were streaks of fiery orange, deep, almost bruised purples, soft pinks like cotton candy, and this incredible golden glow that seemed to emanate from within. I just stood there, mesmerized. The water in my glass forgotten. The stresses of the day, gone. Like they'd never even existed. It was like the sky was putting on this incredible show just for me. And you know what I did? Something completely spontaneous. Something I hadn't done in ages. I grabbed my old, slightly battered hiking boots from the back of the closet. You know, the ones with the laces that are always coming undone? And a light jacket, and I just left. I didn't even tell anyone where I was going. Didn't grab my phone, my keys, nothing. Just me, my boots, and this inexplicable pull towards that breathtaking sky. I walked towards the edge of town, towards the fields that stretch out beyond the last row of houses. There's this little hill there, overlooking a small pond, and I just knew, that would be the perfect spot. The air was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and something faintly sweet, like wildflowers. Crickets chirped their evening song, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked lazily. As I climbed the hill, the colors in the sky intensified, becoming richer, more vibrant with every step. It was like walking into a painting. I reached the top of the hill, slightly breathless, and, wow. Just wow. The view was even more spectacular than I'd imagined. The pond below reflected the fiery sky, creating this perfect mirror image. The reeds swayed gently in the breeze, whispering secrets to the water. And the sunset, oh, the sunset. It was like a grand finale, a crescendo of color and light. I sat down on the damp grass, not even caring that my jeans would probably be stained. And I just watched. I watched as the colors shifted and morphed, as the sun dipped lower and lower towards the horizon. I watched as the sky transformed from a fiery blaze to a soft, pastel dream. There were no grand revelations, no sudden epiphanies. Just peace. A deep, quiet peace that settled over me like a warm blanket. It was like the world held its breath, and for that brief moment, everything was right. I don't know how long I sat there. Time seemed to lose all meaning. It could have been minutes, it could have been hours. All I know is that when I finally stood up, the sky had faded to a deep indigo, and the first stars were beginning to appear. The air was cooler now, and the crickets sang even louder. As I walked back towards town, I felt different. Lighter, somehow. Like I'd shed a layer of something I hadn't even realized I was carrying. The stresses of the day, the anxieties, the worries, they were still there, lurking somewhere in the back of my mind, but they felt smaller. Less significant. Guess what happened next? Mrs. Higgins caught me sneaking back into my house. Can you believe it? She was watering her gnomes. Yes, watering her gnomes, and she peered at me over her spectacles with this mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Out for a stroll, dear? She asked, her voice a little raspy. Just watching the sunset, Mrs. Higgins, I replied, and I smiled. A genuine, heartfelt smile. She gave me a knowing nod, like she understood. Like she, too, had experienced the magic of a truly spectacular sunset. And you know what? Maybe she had. Maybe everyone, at some point in their lives, has that moment where they connect with something bigger than themselves, something beautiful and awe-inspiring. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes life worth living. That sunset, it wasn't just a sunset. It was a reminder. A reminder to slow down, to breathe, to appreciate the small moments, the simple beauties that surround us every day. It was a reminder that even amidst the chaos and the stress, there is still magic to be found. You just have to look up. You just have to be present. And sometimes, you just have to let yourself get lost in the breathtaking beauty of a painted sky. You know what I mean? From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for spending this time with me and staying connected throughout the video. It really means a lot. I'd love it if you would follow, like, subscribe, and share this video so you can stay updated with new daily content focusing on English speaking and listening. You know, before we go, it made me wonder, any random adventure idea on your mind? It is always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about, and sharing your plans in the comments is a wonderful way to practice expressing yourself in English and connect with others who might have similar dreams. See you tomorrow, and remember to take good care of yourselves and keep practicing. Stay consistent, you've got this.